There is a moment many people experience in silence, often late at night or in the quiet hours of the morning, when faith and confusion sit side by side. You pray with sincerity, you believe with your whole heart, you trust that God is listening, and yet, life still feels heavy. Doors remain closed, answers do not arrive. The struggles seem unrelenting. You watch others move forward while your own path feels slow, complicated, and painfully unclear. In those moments, a question forms, not out of rebellion, but out of exhaustion and honesty. Why does it still hurt if I believe? Why does it still feel hard if God is guiding me? You may have whispered prayers that never received immediate replies. You may have asked for direction, peace, or relief, only to find yourself still waiting, still wrestling, still carrying burdens that seem unfair. And as time passes, the silence grows louder. Not because God is absent, but because you are being shaped in ways you cannot yet understand. This is where many people begin to doubt not God's existence, but God's intention. They wonder whether their prayers were heard, whether their faith mattered, whether their life is unfolding the way it is supposed to. And then comes the question behind every silent prayer, the one few people say out loud but many carry deep in their hearts. If God truly has a plan for my life, why is my path so hard? Why does obedience still feel costly? Why does patience still require so much endurance? Why does growth seem to come through pain rather than peace? This question is not weakness. It is the language of a soul trying to understand its own journey. The truth is, difficulty does not mean deviation. Struggle does not mean abandonment. Silence does not mean absence. Sometimes the very reason your path feels harder is because it is intentional. Because what is being built in you requires time. Because the plan unfolding around you is larger than what can be revealed all at once. We often assume delay means something has gone wrong, when in reality, delay may mean something profound is being prepared beneath the surface. What if you are not behind? What if you are not missing anything? What if your life has not stalled, but is unfolding according to a timeline far greater than the one you are measuring yourself against? God's plans rarely unfold in straight lines. They move in layers, seasons, and stages. They prioritize depth over speed, formation over comfort, purpose over convenience. And often, those chosen for greater responsibility are shaped through longer seasons of waiting. Perhaps you are not delayed at all. Perhaps you are standing inside a greater plan than you can currently see. A plan that requires patience before visibility, growth before recognition, strength before release. And one day, when the silence finally breaks and the pieces begin to align, you may realize that every unanswered prayer was not ignored. It was preparing you for something far greater than you asked for. One of the greatest misunderstandings about God's plan is the assumption that it should look like immediate progress, visible success, and quick relief. We often expect divine favor to arrive as open doors, answered prayers, and smooth paths. But when the plan unfolding in your life looks more like delay than advancement, more like difficulty than blessing, it can feel confusing, even discouraging. Yet this pattern is not a contradiction of God's plan. It is one of its clearest signatures. God's plan rarely begins with outcomes. It begins with formation. While we focus on destinations, God focuses on transformation. While we ask for results, God works on roots. A greater plan requires time because it is not merely about what you will do or receive. It is about who you must become to carry it without being destroyed by it. Immediate blessings can satisfy desire, but they cannot shape character. And character is the foundation upon which every lasting calling is built. When life slows down, it is often because something deep is being formed within you. Patience, humility, discernment, resilience, compassion. These qualities are not downloaded instantly. They are learned through pressure, repetition, disappointment, and waiting. God understands that success without maturity can damage a soul, and visibility without stability can fracture identity. So before he gives you influence, he gives you refinement. Before he gives you responsibility, he gives you resistance. Before he gives you elevation, he gives you endurance. This is why delay is so often misinterpreted. From the human perspective, delay looks like stagnation. It looks like being left behind. It looks like watching others advance while you remain in the same place. But from the divine perspective, delay is alignment. It is timing. It is precision. God does not rush because rushing produces fragile foundations. What is built quickly often collapses quickly. But what is built slowly, with intention, can withstand pressure, scrutiny, and time. God prioritizes who you become before what you achieve, because achievement reveals you, while character sustains you. You can reach a destination without becoming ready for it, but that destination will then expose every unresolved weakness. Many people receive what they prayed for before they were prepared for it, and it becomes the very thing that breaks them. God's mercy often looks like withholding, not because he wants to deny you, but because he wants to protect you. When your life feels delayed, it is often because God is working beneath the surface in ways you cannot yet measure. He is strengthening your inner life. He is teaching you to hear his voice without external confirmation. He is detaching you from validation, urgency, and comparison. He is training you to trust him in silence, not just in answers. These seasons build spiritual depth that no shortcut could ever provide. Difficulty, too, plays a vital role in this formation. Difficulty strips away illusion. It reveals where your faith is rooted. It shows you what you truly depend on when comfort is removed. God does not create hardship for pleasure, but he allows it for purpose. Difficulty forces growth. It confronts pride. It refines motivation. It teaches you how to stand when nothing is guaranteed. Without difficulty, faith remains theoretical. Through difficulty, faith becomes embodied. This is why some people with extraordinary callings endure long seasons of obscurity. They are not being ignored, they are being protected from premature exposure. God knows that what is meant for your future would overwhelm your present self if released too soon. So he builds capacity, he stretches your endurance, he strengthens your discernment. He develops humility so that success does not corrupt you, and dependence so that influence does not isolate you from him. Delay is not denial, it is divine timing. And divine timing is always purposeful, even when it feels painful. God sees the entire arc of your life, not just the moment you are standing in. He knows what is coming, what will be required of you, and what must be established within you beforehand. What feels like waiting is often preparation for longevity. What feels like silence is often instruction without words. There is also another reason delay exists: alignment with others. God's plan often involves people you have not yet met, circumstances that are not yet ready, and environments that must shift before you arrive. If he moved you forward prematurely, you would arrive in the wrong season, surrounded by the wrong people, lacking the support required for what you are meant to do. Delay allows the entire system around your calling to come into alignment, not just you. It is important to understand that divine timing does not operate on urgency. It operates on readiness. God does not ask, "Are you eager?" He asks, "Are you prepared?" And preparation cannot be rushed. Every delay carries instruction. Every obstacle reveals a lesson. Every season of difficulty is shaping you in ways that comfort never could. When you look back later, you may realize that the very season you resented was the season that saved you. The waiting strengthened your discernment. The difficulty taught you boundaries. The silence deepened your faith. The frustration humbled your spirit. And the slow progress ensured that when the breakthrough finally came, you would not lose yourself inside it. God's plan often looks like delay and difficulty because it is a plan that values depth over speed, formation over applause, and endurance over appearance. If your life feels slower than others, it does not mean you are behind. It may mean you are being entrusted with something that requires more preparation, something heavier, something longer lasting, something sacred. And when the timing finally unfolds, you will not only arrive, you will be ready to remain. There is a quiet pattern that appears again and again in the lives of those with a greater calling. Before they are seen, they are hidden. Before they are trusted, they are tested. Before they are positioned publicly, they are formed privately. This hidden preparation is not accidental, and it is not cruel. It is intentional. God does not build vessels for great purpose in noisy, crowded places. He builds them in silence, in obscurity, in seasons where growth happens without applause, and strength is forged without witnesses. This is why people with a greater calling often experience misunderstanding. You may have noticed that others don't fully get you. Your choices seem strange to them. Your values don't always align with the environments you're placed in. You feel misread, mislabeled, or underestimated. At times, it feels unfair, like you are constantly explaining yourself or being judged for things people don't understand. But misunderstanding is often a sign that your life is being shaped beyond common categories. God allows misunderstanding to loosen your dependence on approval. When fewer people validate you, you learn to anchor your identity in truth rather than opinion. This is not punishment. It is protection from building your life on unstable foundations. Isolation is another mark of hidden preparation. There are seasons where your circle grows smaller instead of larger. Friendships drift. Conversations feel shallow. You feel out of place even among people you care about. This isolation can feel painful, especially when you crave connection, but it serves a deeper purpose. Isolation removes distraction. It creates space for self-awareness, reflection, and spiritual sensitivity. When God needs to speak deeply into someone's life, He often does it in quiet environments where His voice is not competing with the noise of the world. Isolation is not the same as abandonment. Abandonment leaves you empty. Isolation shapes you. In isolation, you learn how to sit with your own thoughts. You learn how to face your fears without escaping them. You learn how to hear God without needing constant reassurance. This inner stability becomes essential later, when visibility and responsibility increase. A person who cannot be alone without breaking will struggle under pressure when surrounded by expectations. Silent growth is another defining feature of those being prepared for something greater. While others grow through visible milestones, your growth happens beneath the surface. There are no clear markers, no applause, no obvious progress. Yet internally, everything is changing. Your discernment sharpens. Your emotional intelligence deepens. Your resilience increases. You begin seeing patterns others miss. You develop a quiet wisdom that cannot be taught in classrooms or gained through shortcuts. This kind of growth often feels lonely because it is invisible, but it is also powerful because it is permanent. God often grows His chosen ones in ways that don't make sense to observers. While others celebrate achievements, you are learning endurance. While others receive recognition, you are learning humility. While others move quickly, you are learning patience. This silent formation builds depth, and depth is what allows influence to last. Shallow success attracts attention, but deep formation sustains purpose. Early maturity through hardship is perhaps one of the clearest signs of hidden preparation. You may have been forced to grow up faster than others. Life demanded responsibility from you early. You learned lessons through pain rather than ease. While others were protected from hardship, you were shaped by it. This early maturity was not meant to steal your joy, it was meant to equip you. God often assigns heavier lessons to those He intends to trust with greater responsibility later. Hardship teaches discernment. It teaches compassion. It teaches restraint. It teaches strength that does not rely on control. Through hardship, you learn how fragile people can be, how complex life is, and how important wisdom truly is. These lessons cannot be rushed, they must be lived. And while it may feel unfair that you had to grow through difficulty while others grew through comfort, this preparation gives you the ability to carry weight without collapsing. God prepares people in hidden places before placing them in visible positions, because visibility magnifies everything. It magnifies character. It magnifies weakness. It magnifies intention. Without hidden preparation, visibility can become destructive. Success without formation leads to pride. Influence without humility leads to isolation. Recognition without inner stability leads to collapse. God hides you, not to withhold blessing, but to protect you from receiving it too soon. The hidden place is where motives are purified, where ambition is refined into purpose, where faith is tested without reward, where obedience is practiced without recognition. In the hidden place, you learn to do the right thing even when no one is watching. You learn to remain faithful when there is no applause. You learn to trust God when there is no evidence yet. This kind of integrity cannot be manufactured, it must be formed. Loneliness, in this context, is not abandonment, it is inner training. It trains you to self-regulate emotionally. It trains you to rely on God rather than crowds. It trains you to find peace without external validation. It trains you to become whole within yourself before being responsible for others. Many people want purpose, but few are willing to endure the loneliness required to carry it well. When the season of visibility finally arrives, you may notice something surprising. You are not overwhelmed by it. You are not intoxicated by attention. You are not dependent on approval. You are steady, grounded, clear. The hidden work has done its job. You can stand in the light without losing yourself because you were shaped in the dark. If you have been misunderstood, isolated, stretched in silence, and forced into early maturity, it does not mean something has gone wrong. It may mean something very intentional is happening. God may be preparing you in ways others cannot see, because what He intends to do through you requires depth, strength, and wisdom that only hidden seasons can produce. The hidden place is not your final destination. It is your training ground. And when the time comes, everything formed in silence will speak with authority. There comes a moment, often quietly, often unexpectedly, when your life begins to make sense. Not because every question is answered, but because the confusion no longer controls you. The chaos settles, the noise fades, and in its place, a deeper understanding emerges. You start to see that your path was never random. It was never a mistake. It was never a detour without meaning. It was a deliberate shaping, unfolding at a pace only God could see from the beginning. This moment of revelation does not arrive all at once. It comes in layers, in hindsight, in reflection, in subtle realizations that begin to connect what once felt disjointed. You look back at the road you walked, the delays, the losses, the seasons of isolation, the silent growth, and suddenly you recognize the pattern. You understand why your journey looked different from everyone else's. You see why certain doors had to remain closed. You understand why certain people could not stay. The very things that once confused you now explain you. Your path was different because it needed to be. The lessons you learned could not have been taught in comfort. The wisdom you carry could not have been gained without experience. The depth you possess could not have been formed in ease. God was not withholding from you, He was preparing you. He was writing a story that required nuance, resilience, and empathy. And now, as the plan begins to reveal itself, you realize that your difference was not a disadvantage, it was your calling. One of the most powerful shifts in this season is how your wounds transform. What once felt like damage now reveals itself as depth. The pain you endured begins to carry meaning. The heartbreak that nearly broke you becomes the source of compassion that allows you to understand others. The rejection that wounded your confidence sharpens your discernment. The loneliness that once felt unbearable becomes the space where you learn to listen to God, to yourself, to truth. Your wounds no longer define you as broken. They define you as equipped. At the same time, your skills begin to align. Talents you developed out of necessity now find purpose. Strengths you didn't realize you were building become essential tools. The emotional intelligence you gained through hardship allows you to navigate complex situations. The patience you learn through waiting gives you stability under pressure. The discipline formed in obscurity prepares you for responsibility. Nothing is wasted. Every experience, pleasant or painful, becomes part of the architecture of your calling. And then, almost without trying, you notice something else happening. People begin to respond to you differently. They seek your perspective. They open up to you. They feel safe around you. Your words carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they are grounded in lived truth. You find yourself influencing without forcing, guiding without controlling, healing without trying to fix. This is one of the clearest signs that the plan is revealing itself. Your life begins to serve beyond itself. This is where the deeper truth emerges. God's plan was never just for you. It was always meant to work through you. Your journey was shaped not only to refine your character, but to prepare you to impact others in ways you could not have before. The empathy you carry now allows you to sit with people in pain without judgment. The clarity you've gained helps you guide others through confusion. The peace you cultivated in difficult seasons becomes a refuge for those who feel lost. You begin to understand why God allowed you to experience what others were spared from. It wasn't favoritism, it was assignment. Certain insights can only be gained through experience. Certain healing can only come from someone who has walked through the same fire. Certain wisdom cannot be taught, it must be lived. And now, as your life begins to make sense, you realize that you were being positioned to be a conduit of understanding, of guidance, of healing, of hope. This realization brings humility rather than pride. You don't see yourself as superior, you see yourself as responsible. Responsible to steward what you've learned. Responsible to remain grounded. Responsible to serve without ego. Because you understand now that the plan is bigger than personal fulfillment. It is about contribution. It is about alignment. It is about allowing what God formed in you to flow outward with intention and integrity. Another sign that the plan is revealing itself is coherence. Pieces that once felt unrelated begin to connect. Your education links to your experiences. Your interests align with your calling. Your past struggles inform your present clarity. You begin to see how one season prepared you for the next, even when you didn't know it at the time. Nothing feels random anymore. Even the hardest chapters now have context. This coherence does not mean life becomes easy, but it does mean life becomes meaningful. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "How can this be used?" You stop resisting your story and start honoring it. You stop wishing you were someone else and begin embracing who you've become. The plan doesn't erase the pain, it redeems it. At the right time, every piece connects. Not on your schedule, but on God's. Timing is critical because revelation requires readiness. If understanding had come earlier, it may have overwhelmed you or distracted you from the work of becoming. But now, because you have matured, because you have healed, because you have endured, you are able to see the bigger picture without losing yourself inside it. The revelation comes when you are strong enough to carry it with humility. This season often brings a quiet confidence. Not arrogance, not certainty about every detail, but a grounded assurance that you are where you are meant to be. You no longer rush. You no longer compare. You no longer panic about timelines. You trust the unfolding. You recognize the hand of God in both what is happening and what is still waiting. And that trust changes how you move through the world. You also begin to release regret. You stop mourning the life you thought you should have had. You stop resenting the path you walked. You understand that the detours were part of the design. The delays were protective. The hardships were formative. and the timing, though painful at times, was precise. This does not erase grief, but it transforms it. Regret gives way to gratitude. Resistance gives way to acceptance. Confusion gives way to clarity. When the plan begins to reveal itself, your faith deepens, not because everything is explained, but because everything is connected. You see God not as distant, but as intentional. Not as reactive, but as deliberate. Not as withholding, but as wise. You understand that the silence was not neglect, it was strategy. And the waiting was not wasted, it was working. This is the beauty of divine timing. It reveals the plan when you are finally able to see it without fear. When you can honor the past without being trapped by it. When you can carry the calling without losing humility. When you can serve without needing recognition. When you can lead without forgetting where you came from. And when this moment arrives, you don't feel like you've arrived at the end. You feel like you've arrived at alignment. The plan doesn't conclude, it activates. It begins moving through you with clarity, purpose, and quiet authority. Your life becomes a testimony not of perfection, but of preparation. Not of ease, but of endurance. Not of coincidence, but of calling. At the right time, every piece connects. And when it does, you realize something profound. You were never lost. You were being led. As you reflect on the road you've walked, the waiting, the silence, the detours, the seasons that felt longer than they should have, you may finally begin to see the truth that was hidden while you were moving through it. You were never behind. You were never falling short. You were never missing something everyone else seemed to find so easily. You were being prepared, carefully and intentionally, at the exact pace your calling required. What looked like delay was not neglect, it was precision. You were never abandoned. Even in the moments when prayers felt unanswered and the path ahead felt unclear, you were never alone. You were in a season of training, one that could not be rushed or replaced. In those quiet chapters, your strength was being formed, your discernment sharpened, your faith deepened. God was teaching you how to stand without certainty, how to trust without evidence, and how to grow without applause. These were not empty seasons, they were sacred ones. Your life was never random. Nothing you endured was wasted. Every lesson, every wound, every unexpected turn carried meaning, even when you couldn't see it at the time. The hardships were shaping your character. The waiting was aligning your timing. The silence was preparing your spirit. What once felt confusing now reveals itself as intentional, because your life has always been unfolding within a greater plan, one that extends beyond comfort, beyond speed, and beyond immediate understanding. And now, as you stand where you are today, you are not looking at a delayed destiny, you are standing inside a carefully prepared one. The pieces are beginning to connect. The purpose is becoming clearer. The path ahead is no longer defined by fear or urgency, but by trust and alignment. You are not catching up. You are stepping into what you were being readied for all along. If this message resonated with you, if it gave language to something your heart has been carrying quietly, I invite you to take a moment to support this journey. Like this video, to help this message reach others who may be questioning their path. Share it with someone who is walking through a season of waiting and needs reassurance. And subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring these truths together, one step at a time. Because remember this, and carry it with you as you move forward. If God is taking extra time with you, it may be because He is doing something very big.